When the Personal Data Protection Law goes into effect next year, it will apply to every company that processes personal data in Saudi Arabia and impose obligations, requirements, and controls on the processing of personal data. Starting with the scope of the Personal Data Protection Law, it applies to all processing of personal data in Saudi Arabia and of individuals residing in Saudi Arabia. Processing includes all activities performed on data, from its collection, use, and storage to its destruction. Examples of processing include collecting data on employment applications through vendor registration processes or processing data to complete online purchases. Personal data is also broadly defined as any information in any format that can be used to identify an individual directly or indirectly. Direct information can include physical IDs like IGAMAs, passports, and driver's licenses. Electronic identifiers such as an individual's cell phone or computer network ID, and biometric data like thumbprints and facial recognition. Indirect information refers to anything that makes it possible to identify an individual, such as contact numbers, addresses, bank accounts, and credit card numbers. The Personal Data Protection Law will also impose obligations, requirements, and controls on the processing of all personal data generally and additional or heightened requirements on the processing of sensitive data, which includes genetic data, health data and health services, and credit data. To meet the upcoming obligations, requirements, and controls imposed by the Personal Data Protection Law, companies doing business in Saudi Arabia should start identifying the activities that require the processing of personal data and the types of personal data processed. Activities that require personal data processing include all activities and interactions with individuals. For example, all companies in Saudi Arabia need to interact with individuals to recruit and hire employees. Therefore, companies must collect and process personal data from job applicants, such as contact information, resumes and CVs, and government IDs to identify qualified candidates. Once hired, contact, family, and banking information are also required to administer employee benefits and payroll. Companies also need to process personal data such as contact, personnel, and banking information to facilitate business with contractors, suppliers, and other business partners. They may also need personal data to identify and market to clients, customers, and website users. After identifying activities that require the processing of personal data, companies need to determine if it includes sensitive data. While all companies will have to follow the general requirements for processing personal data, companies that provide certain services or perform certain activities may also have to follow additional controls and procedures imposed on sensitive personal data. For example, companies that provide financial services process credit data that is subject to additional processing controls and procedures. The same applies to companies that process credit data to facilitate commercial transactions. Similarly, healthcare providers process health data, genetic data, or provide health services that are subject to additional processing controls and procedures. Even companies that use biometric data for authentication purposes or location data in their operations will be subject to the additional processing controls and procedures that apply to sensitive data. Companies that learn and understand how they collect and use personal data early in the process will be able to identify and build the policies, procedures, and controls required by the Personal Data Protection Law. EMME, supporting emerging markets and the Middle East.